Like this is the broadcast screen while I try and adjust my chair. Oh, hi.
Oh, hello.
Waha.
For some reason, the little timer happens and it tells us that we're going live, and it's usually a counter of like how long we've been live. We've already been live for 2 minutes, even though I just clicked the button. So cool.
Oh, mine says 30 seconds.
Mine says 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Let's just spend the whole time counting our timers.
41.
40. So I'm in YouTube. How do I see this live thing happening? Your channel.
Oh, so we are live on the Facebook.
Your channel. Oh, found it. All right. Wow. We got 2 people watching. What's up to all our sidekicks and henchmen out there in the Geek Nation? We are live streaming a book club. We're going to be talking about Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which we just did on my actual book club that I host at my store, Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex, 4327 Main Street in Philadelphia. And every 2 weeks, I host a book club where we vote on which book we want to talk about, and then we get together after having read said book, and we discuss it on Zoom. Last night, we had a good amount of fun because we got Zoom hacked, and a bunch of dipshits showed up and started being really rude. So we had to shut down and then reboot, and it was a whole thing. But we wound up having a good time afterwards anyway. So that sucked. But the rest of it was great. So
it was very weird, too, the fact that we were talking about a young romance novel, like a young relationship book, and it was just like hacked by a bunch of like
dipshits.
Aggro dipshits. Yeah, it was actually, I wish they would have just stayed and we talked, and then they were just like, you know what? It was rude of me to be here, but I'm glad I stayed.
I've really taken something away. Yeah.
That's what happened.
So I'm Johnny Destructo, and with me this week is Noel.
Hi.
Hey, we do the Spoiler Alert podcast on the Cult Pop Network. We also do the occasional Gutter Talk with Len the Bat Tribble. So yeah, we're going to talk about Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which is a YA graphic novel by Mariko Tamaki and Rosemary Valero-O'Connell. Those are the people. So yeah, let's see. Usually at book club, I have a list of notes and questions that I'll ask. Usually I go around and say, let's introduce ourselves. We've already done that. We're ahead of the curve.
It's less of a time use here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start off, because this is definitely, a teen novel.
This is outside of our demographic. This is very outside of our demographic. Yes,
for sure. But I've heard such good things about it, and I love the cover so much. I love the art so much that I was really looking forward to reading it. There it is. Oh my God.
Do we have a matching book? Oh, you have the hardcover?
I have the hardcover, dog.
I have the soft cover also available.
So how do you think this portrays teen friendships / relationships? And depending on your answer, do you wish that you read this book when you were younger?
I have very distinct answers for that. Wait, do you want to recap the book first?
Oh, you know what? This is a really long. I'll read some of it. All Freddy Riley wants is for Laura Dean to stop breaking up with her. The day they got together was the best one of Freddy's life, but nothing's made sense since. Laura Dean is popular, funny, and so cute. But she can really be thoughtless, even mean. Their on-again, off-again relationship has Freddy's head spinning, and Freddy's friends can't understand why she keeps going back. So basically, yeah, this is a teen breakup novel.
Yeah.
It's not even like a romance novel. I wouldn't call it a romance. It's a straight up breakup.
It's a self-romance novel. Finding out who you are.
Yes. Yeah. Coming to terms and, being comfortable being alone and all that sort of stuff. Spoiler alert. And, how to, I guess, hold yourself with enough high self-esteem that you won't let anyone just kind of walk all over you.
Yeah, it's a truncated version. Well, it's truncated because it's a shorter story version of that whole first breakup, but then first realization after that breakup. I remember one of my first breakups, realizing the things that you miss the most aren't necessarily specialties of this person because the person was bad.
Yeah.
But it's still, in a weird way, is like a validation of relationships are worth it, which is what I kind of took out of this book.
Oh, quick side note. If you guys are watching, please feel free to comment. And, if you've read the book, let us know what you thought, or if you have any talking points you'd like us to discuss, etc. Quick other side note. For the next book club, we're going to be doing a TKO Presents book, TKO Studios. Which one did we pick? Sarah by Garth Ennis.
Yep, and Sarah, no H.
What's that?
Sarah with no H.
Yes. So if you're interested in getting a copy of that, let me know, and I will for sure tell you how to get it. So yeah, I think the biggest strengths of this book is how realistic it feels to my teen years. It felt very much like going back into high school for a little bit. I think teenagers are a lot different now than they were with regard to certain things.
I don't want to get off my lawn about it, like what they could do. To recap some of the conversation last night when we had the Fuller Book Club, a little bit of it was, is this how teens are now? And it wasn't so much in how they act, so much as the things that they're allowed to do and can do, and how much more open the world is when it comes to technology and autonomy. Like when we were teenagers, because we're so old, it was, you had a limited amount of things to do. Take into account the last 10 to 15 years of telecommunications becoming huge, and you have your own kind of sphere of knowledge and bubble of information, and everyone shares it. I feel like, I didn't know that teenagers nowadays are much more informed, much more much more involved, much more autonomous. Like they literally do have their own lives separate from their families. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of cool. I'm a little jealous of kids these days, and I think they're dealing with a lot less nonsense than I was. When I was going to high school, I went to a very sports oriented high school, and it was all about masculinity and sports and footy baby, which is, I guess, football. So being an artistic type who read comics and rode on my skateboard and had a mohawk and everything, I wasn't beloved. You were persona non grata? Yeah.
What's that?
Persona non grata?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I was called the F word a lot and stuff. And it seems like I guess maybe in California where this book takes place, maybe that's a less of a concern amongst these kids. They're all, as far as gender and sexuality, those are non-issues for the most part in this book, which I also kind of respect, because that means there's been at least a little bit of progress where we have queer characters, and the whole book isn't about being queer characters.
That did come up in conversation last night. The idea that it's great to have stories like this kinds of, it's in the community, it's progress, because you can have stories like this without having to deal with the fact that, like, we have to get all the queer stereotypes or conflicts out of the way to get to just a normal story about grounded relationships. And it's set in California, and it sucks that there aren't stories like that set in the Midwest or places that may not be as open or as involved in the community. But by virtue of placing stories like this there, you have to talk about that, because it still is part of the common conversation compared to where it might be in California or Portland or New York. Like it's weird. Like, it sucks that you can't have those stories without dealing with all of the notions of society, but you still can't yet, right? Like, it would almost be a lie to skip that part, because it's still occurring, which is the problem.
Yeah, but I like that that wasn't a huge part of this particular book, and
it's almost irrelevant.
What's that?
It's almost irrelevant.
Yeah, which I love. I love that. Yeah. We can just get on to the important parts of the conversation, as opposed to like, oh, they like the same sex. All right, cool. That's great. Good for them. We also had a similar conversation in the movie club that we do where we were talking about Booksmart, the new comedy from last year. And there was another situation where I was like, oh, gender and sexual orientation are not a big part of this as far as like any of the foils that the main characters have to deal with. It's none of the conversations, they're not getting picked on because of their sexuality or gender.
Mm-hmm. It's great. The idea of, so I know that labels can create ostracism and or you to feel like an outsider or the other. But it's great to see a story that with that kind of conflict or that kind of like emotional journey without your otherdom or your outsider conflict being your label. Right. So like the label of you are gay is not the conflict of this story. The conflict of the story has to do with somebody just feeling like an emotional outsider because they're in a bad relationship, which is very relatable no matter what you subscribe to or prescribe to. Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, I think it was pretty funny last night that I was like, oh, I feel like, okay, so Freddy's the main character and then Laura Dean is the girl who keeps breaking up with her. A little too cool for school. Very kind of thoughtless. And I said something last night about, coming as a 40-year-old, I'm able to connect emotionally with both Freddy and Laura Dean. I have been both of those people for other people. There are times where I was like not the sweetest guy to my girlfriends. And then there are times where I was, treated poorly by my girlfriend. So, and everyone was like, oh my God, how dare you? And I'm like, I feel like we've all been both of these characters in one extent to another, where I'm sure everyone looks back on some of their relationships and goes, didn't handle that the best.
Yeah, I mean, didn't handle that the best. Yes. Was a manipulative piece of shit.
Right. I've dabbled in being a piece of shit. That's the line from what?
I've dabbled in being a piece of shit. I don't remember.
No, well, she said, I've dabbled in being a bitch. It's from Scott Pilgrim.
Oh,
yeah,
that's right. That's right. I don't know. Like, yeah, no, it's relatable. Also, too. So let's dig into the story. Let's do it. Let's just jump in. There are, on a surface level, it's a very simple story, and it's also told through only one perspective. Yeah, cheers, by the way.
Oh, clank.
It's a very simple story, and it's really only told through the perspective of Freddy, your main character.
Oh yeah.
She's a reliable narrator, but she's also very narrow focused. So the surface story that's being told is literally just about her and trying to manage her relationship with Laura Dean versus her friends. But what the writer and the artist do is that they tell all these side stories without telling the whole story. So you're almost seeing like the middles of conversations for a lot of other things, and a lot of context is filled in really, really subtly. So there's Freddy. So it's weird. It's like if you just like a really quick cursory read of this, it's just a single, very simple story about a girl trying to get over another girl and finally, having the confidence to do so. But thinking about it more, it's about a group of friends who are all outsiders together and all of their different, very nuanced problems that have to do with really just basic maturity and dealing in, modern society, which was really, really cool. Even Laura Dean, as much as a shithead that she is, has her own problems and foibles, which is really cool.
See, that's where I think this book stumbles a little bit. I should say I love the book. That's the back of it. I love the book. I think this was fantastic, and I think a lot of that does have to do with the strength and the charm of the artwork, which we will get to later. But I really did enjoy this book. I was reading it next to my wife, and every so often I would be like, "Oh God, you piece of shit!" I would like, "Fuck you!" I would curse at the book because I was so frustrated with Laura Dean and the way she's treating Freddy. And but overall, I really enjoyed it. But I forgot what I was gonna say.
I want to make I think we're going to get into it. I wanted to make a case for, so Laura Dean is a villain. She's a villain.
That's what I was going to say. Right. Yeah. And thank you.
From the perspective of Freddy, she's a shit, or from the perspective of just Freddy, she is irredeemable for the most part. She's a cheat. She's a flirt. She's emotionally manipulative. She's a shitty girlfriend and probably just a very immature and terrible person.
Yeah.
And that's the surface level read of it. And that's totally fine because that works for the conflict. But the way that the artist and the writer treat her, how they show her surroundings, how they contextually kind of add in how her parents are never around. First of all, you don't even know if she has a father at all. Right. You just know that she's got a mother who's never there. She sleeps on a futon. Everything's a mess. She eats at other people's houses. You've got these things that kind of like add to this character that it's told almost subconsciously throughout the whole story, that when it all does go crashing down for Laura Dean, even though she deserves it, you still feel emotionally connected to her too.
Oh, see, like, it
didn't click and get it when she 0 to 60 reacted hard to Freddy breaking up with her.
No.
Oh, no, for me, it did.
Good for you. Good. I'm glad. Way to go, Freddy.
I mean, that's the knee-jerk reaction of, and it's an appropriate one too, of being like, yeah, girl, get it. Fuck yeah, it's about time that you stood up for yourself. However, when she reopens the door and starts yelling to, fuck off and how dare you and crying, and it's an ugly cry, you're like, yeah, she's a person too, and this probably really fucking sucks. Like, for the longest time, she thought that she controlled this one thing.
Yep.
And that was the only thing that she was able to keep structured because the rest of her life was shit.
Right.
And now this thing also broke. Yeah, this girl is broke. This girl needs help.
Didn't feel that at all.
I felt that.
I'm glad. I didn't like. Maybe if I had some little bit of inner monologue. I realize this book is from the perspective of Freddy and maybe the group of friends a little bit, and there's little to no peek into the thoughts or emotions of Laura Dean as a character. And she just felt like a villain to me for the most part, of like, oh, she's just there to be shitty. We're only going to see the shitty things that she does. But I think the thing that the book was missing for me was that emotional connection with Laura, or at least show, I don't even need the connection with Laura. Show me the emotional connection between Freddy and Laura. And the reason why, despite Laura Dean being such a shitheel to Freddy is still like that, ready to just get right back together with her. As soon as she says jump, Freddy says how high. And I thought if there was some moments of sweetness or affection or love between Laura Dean and Freddy, I would have been able to be like, oh, all right, I get why she keeps, moving back towards Freddy when really it's not in her best interest, but at least I can understand the pull. And, the thing that people said last night at book club was, well, she's popular. All right. That's not enough for me.
It's not enough. It's not enough when you just like weigh the two people together. However, if you think about it, it's less about how Laura didn't provide anything for you and more about what's missing with Fred. Mm-hmm. Fred needs that validation from somebody that she reveres.
Yeah.
And so like it's basically just a problem of the main character. Like, so the conflict itself in this whole story really is just Fred figuring out what she's worth.
Yeah.
Not so much as there's this antagonist that's ruining her life, because there really isn't. The main thing that happens towards the end is the fact that she realizes that she had a very solid circle to begin with and didn't necessarily need the validation of Laura. So like, in a weird way, Laura's inconsequential.
Yeah.
She's a side character. She doesn't matter.
Right. This is
just she is the title, but she doesn't matter.
Right. It's just Freddy coming to terms with herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is interesting. It didn't occur to me till this now, but there's literally no conflict in this book other than the relationship.
Yeah, none. Well, I mean, side characters have conflicts. So Doodle, her best friend, has a pregnancy, not even a scare, is pregnant, via statutory rape. Freddy and Eric, her two best friends in a gay couple, have identity issues in a weird or in and out issues.
You said Freddy and Eric.
I'm sorry, Buddy.
Buddy and Eric. Yeah.
Buddy and Eric. Buddy is very out, and Eric is not with his family. So you've got this kind of conflict that keeps happening in the background. Mm-hmm. Buddy, because he is flamboyantly out, he still gets picked on at school, especially in gym. You see the aftermath of something like that. So like you see all these conflicts, but they're more like slice of life peppered in, and they're never the central focus of the book unless it has to directly deal with Freddy.
And which I think is also interesting because it says a little bit about Freddy herself and how involved she is with Laura Dean and the ins and outs of that particular relationship, that we only get these little flashes, little nuggets of the things that are happening to her friends. Because at no point does Freddy spend any amount of time delving into these things or helping their friends cope with these things. It's really just like, oh, that happened. So anyway, Laura Dean.
Yeah, until the very end.
Yeah. Which I thought that was pretty strong as well. So wait, you didn't answer the question. How do you feel that this portrays teenagers and relationships?
I didn't relate to it.
Okay.
I related to it in somebody last night mentioned Jake Chase mentioned last night. He relates to it, but only in kind of like a satellite fashion. Like you were around this situation and you were familiar with the situation. You weren't necessarily the player. So I relate to it in that way, but not necessarily anything that really happened to me, like a serial issue. So I relate to it in that way. If I had read this as a teenager, would I have experienced it different or made different choices or something like that? No, because I was a teenager. Like that was
my definition. No, because you're a teenager.
Yeah, I wouldn't have the forethought to think something. I wouldn't have the forethought to examine something like this. Or even if I did, let's say I had the forethought to examine something like this and realize that it's a possibility. Would I also have the extended forethought to or wisdom to understand that I am currently in this situation and maybe I can separate myself? That's a lot of wisdom for a 17-year-old. Not saying that 17-year-olds aren't mature. It's just you're still figuring shit out. You don't necessarily have the benefit of putting yourself into a situation like this and then understanding enough to get yourself out. It's like it's your right to make mistakes, and that's what this story is about. Not necessarily like a guide on how to not fuck up. It's gonna happen. Yeah.
I related to it quite a bit. I've been in many of these sorts of relationships where even into my late 20s, early 30s, I was dealing with someone who was constantly back and forth and like stringing me along. And I just kept being like, well, this will be the time that I mean something to this person. And they were just good enough. What?
I was like, I'll be here when you're ready. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. You go off and have fun and have sex with a lot of dudes. I'll hang back and I'll just wait for you to be ready. Which in retrospect, not my best move. It
made you who you are today.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. What was my other question? What else we got? Did we talk about Laura Dean? What do you think of her? You thought a lot higher of her than I did, I think.
Well, I think that she's an asshole, but I don't necessarily think that she's a villain.
Yeah.
I think she's just immature and troubled. Like she has a very privileged life, and I don't mean by like means. Privileged means it's like she doesn't seem to have much, but the privilege of freedom when you're that young means that you're going to be selfishly making stupid choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted some more. I wanted to, because even if she's a villain, my favorite villains are the people whose points of view I can sort of put my head behind and I go, all right, I can understand why Dr. Doom is making this decision because he thinks that this is the best thing for Latveria. And, at least it's coming from a place of caring about something, you know what I mean? And so without that to latch onto here, I wanted that sort of other side for me to emotionally connect to of like, oh, okay.
I do agree with you. You had mentioned earlier, and I meant to say I agree with you. I agree that it would have been wonderful for us to see the two of them in a bubble.
Yeah.
The two of them, not just Fred's perspective, but the two of them and how sweet or charming that Laura could be, or how attentive that she could be when no one else is around. Like some sort of thing to not let it, in a weird way, it's a disservice to Fred, because this whole story, she's just enamored and in love. But
could you imagine, let's say this is based off a true story, and both of these characters know the creators of this story and it's written about them. I would hate to have been Laura Dean, the character, the person that this is based on, because I'd be like, none of my shit's in there. I just look like an asshole for no reason.
I don't know. I feel like if they're, let's say that they're like a little older than us now, like in their 40s or something. I think that even if you were that big of a shit when you were 18, at this point, if you're not ready to just be like, I was a dick, I'm sorry. Then you're probably still a dick, and it doesn't matter.
True. Let's see. We already talked about that.
But to finish my point earlier, I do think that I do wish that there was more of the two of them, and you got to know why they were in a relationship and or why Fred was so into her without just her just really just saying she was into her. You never really saw why, other than the fact that she was attractive.
I just thought of The Breakfast Club. And it's one of my favorite movies growing up. John Waters' film about a ragtag group of kids. What'd I say?
Waters.
Oh, that would be very different.
Very different. One has to do with eating shit off a stick. One has to do with dancing in montage.
John Hughes movie from the 80s about a ragtag group of kids who all have to spend Saturday detention together all day or whatever. And of course they find out things about each other, even though they antagonize each other, and relationships are formed and blah, blah, blah. But you have one of the characters who's the shit heel, right? It's the guy. And he's got the bandana and he's sort of like the punk kid. And at first he's just an asshole, but throughout that story and his other certain behaviors or monologues, you find out his home life. And like the way the dad treats him and stuff, like, smoke up, Johnny, gives him a pack of cigarettes for Christmas. No, that's okay, Dad. You can do it on the boat, So that's at least a little bit of work to get you to emotionally connect to that character. So I realize I'm beating a dead horse with this, but
no, it works both ways too. So like with that movie, even specifically, that story gave breathing room for every stereotype to explain like why they function in that stereotype and why they're more than that stereotype.
Yes.
It was not from one person's perspective at all.
Yeah.
This is a different structure. It's only from Fred's perspective.
That's true.
But to that said, though, it also gives a disservice to Fred because you don't get to see why she's really in love with Laura Dean, other than the fact that she's this monolith that Fred never thought she deserved. Now, I know that for a 17-year-old, and when I was 17, that really was enough. Like, this person's paying attention to me. I don't care how awful they are. This person's paying attention to me, and they're important. I get that that's enough, but as a reader, it would have been kind of cool to not. There's a little part of me that thought, or that thinks that she's foolish and young, and I don't want to only think that she's foolish and young. I want to think that she was kind of fed into this destructive relationship as opposed to just submitted to it immediately. So like showing Laura as incredibly charming and incredibly sweet in the moment would have done it.
I agree. Yeah. Did you have favorite side characters?
Man, all of them. Doodle, V, in order. Actually, in order. Buddy, Doodle, V, and Eric. Yeah. Yeah.
I put Doodle at the bottom.
You like Doodle?
For the majority of the book, Doodle just sort of like it's a lot of facial acting. It's just a lot of it's a lot of moping. It's a lot of like just quiet contemplation and judgment.
Doodle does not like Laura Dean.
Yeah, for sure.
The other ones play along. The other friends play along and are just like, I guess, sure, that's fine. Hi. Doodle just shuts the fuck down. Like
boop, laters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could have used, but we don't really know how long, or at least I'm not able to suss out on the spot how long the pregnancy was going on. Was that the entire book? I'm under the impression that even in the beginning, before she was pregnant, I don't know why I'm air quoting. She was pregnant. Before she was pregnant, she was always just sort of down, and just quietly judging. And I understand that type of character, Doodle, is very much an introvert. And having grown up mostly extrovert with a little bit of introvert, it's taking me a while to understand that introverts handle things very, very differently than extroverts. Whereas I was always the one like, what are you doing? Get away from that person. They're toxic. This sucks. Introverts are kind of like, well, I'm just going to be mopey about it and hope you notice.
I mean, or it's just a bevy of smaller cues as opposed to a confrontation.
Yeah.
Like an introvert would not necessarily tell you like you're making a fucking mistake. They'd be like, are you sure you want to?
Yeah. Oh.
Or, I mean, you could choose something else if you wanted to, but
yeah.
Like it's much more passive. It just is.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm looking in, and Doodle starts her clandestine relationship around page, like, she mentions it in page 100 when she's asking questions about how old, what are the laws like. It's page like 75 where she meets this person.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's 74 pages of them just being like, meh. I don't think I like Laura Dean. I'm not going to say anything, but then also there's the whole, option. Oh, here she is. Where's Doodle? Where'd she go? Yeah. It's hard to move books.
Even though I have it in front of me, I'm trying to see it on the screen with you.
Where'd she go? There she is. Why is this so difficult?
That's not Doodle. That's Laura. What's wrong with you?
No, this one. All right, this finger. There she is. There she is.
It's a Doodle.
There's that Doodle girl. But I'm gonna go with Buddy. I think Buddy, because being an extrovert, I like Buddy a lot. But I gotta be honest. At first, I didn't, until the locker room scene, I didn't realize that Buddy was male. For
identified as, yeah. It was. You know what? I wasn't sure gender for a lot of these characters.
Yeah.
Which like Doodle, I wasn't sure how Doodle identified at all.
Same.
Yeah, like it's just Doodle, it's just Buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, at no point was I like worried about it. It's just we got to the locker room scene and I went, oh, they're in the boys' locker room. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they're clearly getting picked on by one of the jocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who won't show his face and is ready to leave. So I didn't know if that was like a commentary on closeted anything, but still, it's a very subtle book.
Yeah.
I
love the design. I love the design of Buddy as well.
Yeah, Buddy's great.
Very cool. Very cool.
Buddy and Eric are great. Like I love the idea. I love that in their own social circles, they are very affectionate. They are together, but then it gets like the conflict that it just gets like ripped backwards when anything that has to do with Eric's family comes up. And
it doesn't seem like a very easy solution to it, right? Because I do understand both sides of that. Where we're going to my grandmother's 90th birthday. It's about her birthday, and I don't want to make it about my relationship, which bringing you would make it about my relationship with you.
Yeah. Like he is still in the closet with his family. Yeah. So bringing his boyfriend to this event makes it
open up a whole can of worms.
Yeah. Over like from his perspective. And to be fair, his perspective is also coming from fear. He's afraid to tell his family.
Yeah.
And him getting over that or getting through that is not like the solution is not to shock them on his grandmother's 90th birthday party.
Yeah, right.
But from Buddy's perspective, it's so incredibly unfair. And also, too, you start to question your self-worth. Mm-hmm. So, like, these are all incredibly relatable situations, regardless of your sexuality.
I just got a message that one of my customers has driven by to grab their books. Keep the people entertained. I'll be right back.
Oh, sure. I have no one to talk to. Look, if you're watching this live, the best thing to do right now is to use the restroom. I'll wait. Oh, also too, even though you don't go outside where all the germs are, still wash your hands after the bathroom. Before COVID, it was the thing to do. Wash your goddamn hands. Afterwards, wash your damn hands. I'll wait. Wash your hands. Okay. It was a good book. When it was picked, I was not immediately interested. I'll be completely honest. And I'll repeat this when he gets back, or he'll see it some other day. I was not immediately interested because this is not my demographics, not my wheelhouse. Look, we got YA. I'm aggressively older than YA. Hang on. I know you're back.
Nope, I'm not.
Go away. No, I'm just kidding. Come back. No, oh, he's not back. Okay. I don't read YA. I understand that the readership of spans ages. It doesn't really matter. It's just like how I still watch cartoons on occasion. I understand that media is media, but it's just not a demographic, or it's not like a type of book that I usually read. I know a lot of people that do. So when it was picked, I was just like, all right, I'll give it a shot, I guess. And I was pleasantly surprised at how well done this book is. We haven't talked about the art yet, but we will when we get back. And that's what really did it for me. Like how great that this story is, or how well it's told. It's a story of a breakup, and it's a lot of cliched things. It's just done so incredibly well between the artist and the writer that it's worth it to read. It was really, really good. What are you guys reading? I think that's stupid. Whatever you said. That time in the podcast, in the live feed, when somebody disappeared. Yeah. I've been reading a lot of weird shit. Not weird shit. I've been reading a lot of extra stuff lately. Because of all the shutdown, the quarantine, I haven't necessarily had extra time. I have the privilege of having a job that has work from home capabilities. And because of everything, it's almost been busier. So it's been very difficult to find extra time, but I have been finding extra time to read some cool stuff. So I'm going to go through the long list of things that I'm currently reading and or have finished. Number one.
No, stop it.
Hey,
buddy.
What did they buy?
He got Wicked and Divine. Well, his wife actually got Wicked and Divine hardcover volume 4.
Nice.
The Runaways Marvel Omnibus.
Oh. I would have done that if I didn't have the 3 volumes anyway.
Monstress, a couple volumes of Monstress, and some Paper Girls. Sorry about that. I forgot that a customer was coming by to do a curbside pickup.
No, all I did was ask everyone that might be watching, and I think it's no people.
Yeah.
It's roughly 0 people.
Okay. Give or take 0 people.
More or less. To go to the bathroom.
Okay, hi. So what were we talking about? Was it this book?
It was, but let's just skip to the art. Let's talk about the art because we haven't done that. Oh my God.
If there is anything that I love about this book, artwork, the line work, the hair, the fingers, the hands, everything is so organic and lovely, and the gestures are wonderful. The panel layouts are pretty what's the word? Standard, but every so often they break the format. It's cool like this.
It's a very good. The art I was saying to the nobodies before. I mean, you're not nobody. Whoever you are, you're great.
Yeah. You're my
great.
favorite.
You're great. I was saying to no one in this room with me that the art really stuck me in. Like when this book was picked, I'll be completely honest. When this book was picked by the group, I was not excited to read it.
Yeah.
And up until I read it, I was not excited to read it because it doesn't scratch any itch that I actively have when it comes to how I spend my reading time.
Right.
I don't read YA stuff often, if at all. I don't read relationship books much at all. And it's the format I don't really read much. So it's like, okay, I'll give this a shot because everyone says it's great. But when it comes to me just being excited about it, I'm not there. But the art was so damn good for this whole book, and it was so fluid and organic, and the panel style was just so awesome. The way that she switched formats constantly was it kept me going. Like I read this all in one sitting. It's what, 300 pages?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a difficult read, but still, like I was expecting to. Yeah, it's like 290 pages. I plowed through it in one sitting. Just because it was engaging. It just kept me going. Even when I wasn't engaged with the narrative, I was still just following along with the panel progression because the art was so great. So it's like when it was a two-hander between the art and the writing, because the art was doing such a great job that was getting me to the next part, and then a plot point would happen and then pushing back and forth. It was just so good. It was really, really good. Limited color scheme.
Yep. I got to say, my favorite are the hands. As an artist, the hands are notoriously difficult to draw. And even though I love drawing hands because of how difficult they are and how expressive they can be, I'm very jealous of Rosemary Valero-O'Connell's hands. So good.
Yeah, I've heard the writer before, but I've never heard of this artist.
Me neither. I'm going to go look up their Instagram and see what else they're doing.
Yeah, I would like to know everything about them.
Yeah, they're so good. And I always love when you have a collected edition. I'm disappointed if they do not give me the
sketches,
man. Give me them sketchies. Give me them
character
pencils.
designs and stuff. Yeah, the character designs are fantastic. Every single that's another really great sign of a fantastic artist. The fact that one, all of the acting in panel is on point, and also two, you never need to you never question who is who. Everyone has a unique face, a unique style, and a unique body posture. It becomes fluid. A lot of artists, especially when they're working in limited color palettes and or black and white, if all brunettes look like the same, all blondes look the same, it's very difficult to master acting as a cartoonist. And this, Rosemary is fantastic.
Also, look at that hair.
Her.
Oh my God, that hair's so good.
I'm gonna pet it.
So yeah, this is one of the most beautiful books I've read so far this year. I honestly, I just keep flipping through it and looking at the artwork. Now, there's an interesting thing that they're doing. So, as I said, I'm a cartoonist myself, and
humble brag.
Well, I didn't say I was a good one. When you have a foreground and a background, the foreground always has thicker lines than the background. The things that are a foot away from you or 7 feet away from you, the lines get thinner and thinner as they move back in space. And the things that are closer generally have a much thicker line quality to them. But this Rosemary, if you look throughout the backgrounds and everything, it's all the same line weight. And they're using gray tones to differentiate not only shadow, but depth.
Yeah, I am not an artist in any way, shape, or form.
For instance, here's this panel of them out front of Laura Dean's house, and the banister, which is closest to you, which is in front of, or even the plants, are all the same line weight as the buildings that are directly across the street. Oops.
Go to page 26.
I did it.
The what is it? The establishing shot.
Yeah.
how detailed it actually is if you like look really close. Most artists would just kind of
fudge it,
half-ass that for the most part, because it's a wide shot that's just establishing location. However, you can make out the facial expressions on both Doodle and well, I mean not Fred because her hair's up and
Freddy doesn't have a nose. But also I love that sort of shorthand. I love when illustrators will do this shorthand of characters far in the distance where like they're just a blank, like a flat. If you think of the Question from DC Comics is just a flat, maybe like an eyeball. And they used to do that back in the day with Spider-Man. For some reason, I always really loved the illustrations of Spidey as he's doing the flip from building to building to building, and they would erase all the webs.
Oh yeah,
of the costume. Like if he's far in the distance,
he's all the webs. Blue and red. Like he's just a blur of blue and red in the back. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this is masterful cartooning. I'm in love with it, honestly. Oh. When she goes to see the tarot card reader and there's everything is dark except for what's, she's being lit by a lamp. Masterful. I love it. And that's why I've been dying to read this book. It's only because of this cover. I also am a big fan of like pinks. So anytime there's like a bunch of nice pinks, that's what draws me towards Steven Universe. Mm-hmm. And also I think a lot of these character designs have a lot in common with Steven Universe designs.
I am not familiar with Steven. Wait, hang on. I'm familiar with Steven Universe because my eyes are open and I live in the world.
Yes. But
I've
other than that,
watched it though. No. Yeah.
But yeah, they do a thing where Freddy's nose will disappear constantly. But it doesn't bother me. It should bother me, but it doesn't.
So, there's a lot of points in the story, and it really just depends on the scene where things get super intricate, and then immediately go to blank slate and just a person.
Yes.
And it's a constant. It's almost like a constant focus and blurring, like a blur and a focus and a blur and a focus. Mm-hmm. So like when the two characters are together in a conversation, everything blurs. But then when it pulls back for pacing, the scenes themselves are super detailed.
Yep.
It's a lot of like discipline. It's really, really great.
Yeah. And I wonder if they must be using like building references and stuff. Like I wonder if they live in San Francisco and walk around and take pictures. Yeah. What did you think of? So basically this entire story is, we're going to wrap it up in a second, but the entire story is Freddy writing into an advice columnist. How do you feel about that as a structure and as a way to, talk directly to the audience?
It was a successful device. And it was only, this was mentioned last night by, I believe, Rachel, like it was successful because it's wrapped up. Mm-hmm. So if it was started in the beginning and then dropped, then it would have been garbage, but it's brought back around to the response from the columnist to like what to do. And then that's kind of juxtaposed on a montage of where she's at now. It was a really, really good setup and payoff.
Yeah. Anna Weiss, I think is the name of the.
Yeah. The advice columnist.
Yeah.
Anna Weiss, advice.
Yep. Oh, and then what did you think of the inanimate objects? So basically there's a bunch of different dolls and stuff in Freddy's room or even like her cell phone. There'll be like little word bubbles where the writer will have the inanimate objects talking, even though most of the characters can't. I don't think any of the characters can actually hear them.
No. So I was thinking about this last night. It was brought up. Like when I was reading it, it was just a part of the story.
Yeah.
And then since we talked about it, I was thinking about it a little bit, and it is, before I was indifferent, but now I think it's brilliant because all it is a manifestation of her anxiety.
Yep.
It's another way for the storyteller to relay information without it being a monologue, an internal monologue. Just like how the advice column was her inner thoughts, and then it's, put on top of the scenes like text boxes. You seeing these little flippy word balloons on top of Beanie Babies and on her phone is it's just a manifestation of her anxiety. It literally is, because it's them saying stuff like, no one likes you. No one cares. Nope. Like, yep. I thought that was great. Like, in hindsight, I love it even more.
To keep beating that dead horse, I would have liked to have maybe seen some of the, like, maybe some of Laura Dean's inanimate objects saying things to give us, even if we're not going to get a hint of her inner workings, maybe have those be sort of indicative of what she's going through.
To beat the beater of that dead horse that you've beaten to death.
That's me. Yeah.
Let's do a musical number between Freddy's imaginary inanimate objects and Laura's imaginary inanimate objects, and the two of them have a battle royale, kind of like Beat It / West Side Story style.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Sharks and Jets all the way.
Did you see the TV show with what was it called?
Pop Rock? No, I'm just kidding.
With Jim Carrey.
Oh, kidding?
Kidding. Did you see that?
Nope.
There's an entire sequence where there are two people who have a language barrier and they don't speak a word of the other person's language, but when they put on their Muppets, they're able to talk to each other completely. It's pretty interesting. And that's just what it made me think of, that if, like, with the inanimate objects, if, like, maybe Laura Dean and Freddy can't communicate that well, but maybe the inanimate objects were communicating with each other.
But if it's only the perspective of Fred,
I know.
Then Laura Dean's stuff would just validate her insecurities.
Yeah, it's true.
So, like, Laura Dean's pants would just be like, you don't deserve to be in here.
Yeah.
Or like it's all from the perspective of this person. So
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well,
like, whenever she's on her phone just like has a little word balloon that says, "I'm not texting you." Shit like that. Like, it would just be validating Fred.
That's true. What do you any last thoughts?
No, I wasn't excited to read this, but I'm glad that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a new favorite artist.
Oh my God. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I like I'm not indifferent to things that don't interest me at first blush.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't get excited to just read random things based off of others' recommendations. So that's the point of book club, right? To read something that you potentially wouldn't jump into. And this was great. Do I want to read this stuff all the time? Fuck no. No, not even a little bit. Like, these aren't the kind of stories that kind of keep me going. However, having one of these every once in a while is actually quite nice. Just like with a romantic comedy. Do I like to only watch those? No, not at all.
But every so often.
A good one every so often is just perfect.
That's one of the best things about the book club. I've been hosting it for so long now that we've gotten to the point where, at the end of every book club, we vote for the next book. And so we've gotten to a point where I don't know all of the books that are voted for. So it's a chance for me to be like, oh, good. Because back in the beginning, I would suggest the books and people would be like, that's good. So yeah, it's more involved now with a bunch of different people. So.
It's spidered out enough now to where you're starting to get things that surprise you too.
Stella just tuned in. She was in our book club last night. So anyway, if you out there in the land are interested in book club, we do it virtually now because of the COVID nonsense. Basically, it's going to be 2 weeks from yesterday. I should look up the actual date, and we will be discussing.
I got it.
Oh, Noel's got it. So let's see. This is April 16th. Last night was the 15th. So April 29th is the next book club. And you are more than welcome to join us. We will be talking about Sarah from Garth Ennis and Steve Epting from TKO Studios. And you can either get that book from me, or you can go to tkopresents.com, or is it studios.com?
Presents.
tkopresents.com. And if you anything you order from there, if you select Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex from the drop-down list of stores as your favorite bookstore, they will send me half of the money as if I had bought it for you and sold it to you at my shop. which is one of the coolest things.
Support local comic shops.
Yeah, even if it's not my shop, just pick your local comic shop, whatever your favorite shop is, and they'll send the money directly to them, which is just awesome. So yeah, that'll be April 29th at 8 p.m. on Zoom. And if you go on Facebook, you can look us up. There's a Facebook group for it called Hero Complex Book Club. So just join that and join the fun. And we're also doing things where we're doing a movie club where we watch a movie and then get together and talk about it. Last time we did Booksmart. This upcoming Tuesday,
Parasite.
This upcoming Wednesday, the 22nd, we're going to be talking about
Parasite.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's it. Oh, if you want to tweet with us, you can go to @JD's Hero Complex. Noel, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Noel at Mr. Bartocci. MRBARTOCCI, or just on any of these social pages, and I will respond like a weirdo. Be sure to follow the other feeds and podcasts too, right?
Yep. Cold Pop Podcasts. We do Spoiler Alert, where we live stream. Well, now it used to be we would live stream about that week's comic book issues. Now we're doing more of a book club situation, but it's 4 of us. And last time we talked about JLA Avengers. This week we'll be talking about Black Hammer Volume 1 by Jeff Lemire. I don't know if you want to help the shop out. You can go to patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo. Also, my shop is still doing mailouts and curbside pickup. So if you need comics or trade paperbacks, please hit us up. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk at you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Freeze frame.
Broadcast.